Get me out, bond me out, so I can go down there. No, I only do 3 months down there. I'm good. I did.
All right, is file number 24943FY, People versus Jeffrey Vernon Chapman. That's you, sir?
Yes, yes, sir.
Mr. Chapman, you're here with your lawyer, Mr. Paul Gibson. You're charged with resisting instructing a police officer causing an injury and resisting obstructing. It's alleged that on or about May 7th in the village of Burr Oak, a lot been going on in Burr Oak lately, that you did assault, batter, wound, resist, obstruct, oppose, or endanger Hunter Zinsmaster, causing an injury requiring medical attention or medical care. That's a felony punishable by up to 4 years imprisonment. Count 2 is resisting obstructing Officer Kevin Brooks of the St. Joe County Sheriff's Department. It's my understanding that you have signed a waiver of the preliminary examination. And before I sign it and lose jurisdiction, your lawyer wants me to reconsider the bond in this case. Is that true, Mr. Gibson?
Yeah, I got a few months to do in LaGrange County. I'd like to get that going. I'm already been sentenced.
All right, well, may I see the waiver?
I countersigned that and submitted it. We photocopy it,
But so it isn't here yet.
scan it, and
Okay.
then it might already be to the district court.
All right, maybe down there. So it's been executed.
Yes.
All right, let me take a look and see what the bond is. So I saw that you were extradited to LaGrange back in 21. What's your charge in LaGrange County?
That was another assault with intent to do moderate bodily harm.
Same.
Huh?
Same.
Yeah. It's been going on since 2017.
All right, are you on probation there?
Nope, I got sentenced 6 months. And I have credited time, so I'll only be there probably a couple months. They gave me 30 days to get my affairs in order.
So they let you come up to Michigan to deal with this.
No. I just didn't turn myself back in, Your Honor.
All right, from when?
From the sentencing day. They gave me 30 days to get my affairs in order.
All right, when was that?
You're supposed to bring something on
Well,
August 11th.
Last August?
August 11th.
Yeah.
August 11th of 2024, 2023.
3.
The defendant does indicate that he has lived in St. Joseph County, Michigan for his entire life, and that he has strong ties to the local area, and he currently resides in Sturgis.
Well, you're a flight risk. You've been AWOL from Indiana since last August.
Yeah.
And then you get in a fight with this police officer and injure him allegedly. Let's see what your bond is set at. How do I know you're gonna show up here again? Don't say anything. That's a rhetorical question.
Okay, sorry.
Mr. Marvin, do you have an opinion on this?
I think that it's going to result in more of a burden being put on the courts and my office in this county. He's already here and we should handle it while he's here. Otherwise, we're now dealing with potentially an out-of-state detainer, or I don't know what the situation is down there, but nonetheless, we're already burdened. We're already short-staffed, and now we're going to lose something we finally have our hands on, and it's been long
Well,
enough.
this was an ugly fight. He was probably intoxicated. They had to tase him a couple times. He ran. He was AWOL from
I
the.
stopped and turned around and then I
All
yeah, I
right,
did get away from him.
all right.
I
I
did.
can't.
There on it.
Stop. You're not on the record. We don't know your name. You can't just blurt things out from the, but I can't tell what the bond is.
My
was set
notes
at
show it's
$3,000.
a $3,000 cash surety, 10%.
That's not very high.
No, I was trying to get it a little lower, but
Anyway, the motion to reduce the bond is denied. Defendant was wanted as a fugitive from another county. And I agree with Mr. Marvin. Let's get this resolved. Then if they're gonna give you credit for it, you can get credit here or credit there.
Oh, they don't credit us any time here for over there. I already went through it. I did 18 months and still got no time over there.
Hmm.
They only count their time as when you're in their jail is when they start counting your time.
Well, all the more reason to get this one resolved sooner rather than later. All right, the matter is bound over to circuit court. Bond is not terribly significant. It shall remain as set.
I already did give them permission to talk to you. Get the money, get
I'll
me
have
out
to
so I
get-
can go down there.
Um,
Her name is Jane Gibson. Her phone number is 269.
I got her.
Okay, all right.
If I could finish this.
So get me out, find me out so I can go down there. No, I only do 3 months down there.
Right, but we need
I'm
to
good.
fight this.
Fight it.
We need to resist.
All right, well, you're good to go.
I love you.
Oh, you-
Okay, good luck, sir. So do we need to make a further record on Vandergriff? And then we can do Mr. Yant?
Did we resolve Vandergrift?
Thank you.
Well, I don't know. Did you sign the stipulation to adjourn, Paul? All right, Mr. Yant, why don't you come on back up?
I'm gonna go get my
All right, now,
witness.
Mr. Yant, you just saw several plea to use of methamphetamine cases with short jail sentences. Did anything you just watched change your mind about taking a plea to this minor, well, not minor, but this misdemeanor offense?
Mr. Middleton, I've always respected you. I
Thank
haven't
you.
been getting in trouble. I completed switch insured count two. And speaking on, it was
Well, don't say anything more about, if you want to take the misdemeanor plea, we can do that.
but I wasn't,
This also has an assault charge in it, which would be dismissed. And,
I respectfully had to decline because it wasn't
okay,
my
well,
stuff.
I respect that.
I wasn't nowhere near it. I wasn't even in control of it.
All right, fair enough.
I kept on trying to get that man to stop.
If I gave you a test today, what would it show?
I have Adderall in my system. That's it. I have prescribed 20 milligram Adderall, puts me to sleep. I also have my lithium and Zoloft. Your Honor, I completely switched insure. I did nothing but try helping this man.
Okay, don't tell me any more about it.
Well, I just wanted to respectfully tell you that
All right, well,
doing our rehabilitation, you have
Yes.
to give your addictions away, helping someone else.
well, Paul, we are down to just one case. Who is your judge in Kalamazoo?
Light bulb.
When did you do that? When did you finish
It's
it?
2000, I graduated 2018. I graduated 2020, but I was sent in 2018. She put a really extensive sentence on me. And I respectfully accept that and completed it. And every time this officer or any other officer showed up, there was nothing ever found on me, nothing.
All right, well, this is 2023. All right, the allegation here is that on or about October 10th of 23 in Mendon Township, at least we got out of Burr Oak, that Jeffrey Scott Yant did possess methamphetamine as a second or subsequent offender, and he did make an assault upon Ernest Earl with a dangerous weapon, a knife, as a fourth habitual offender. Mr. Yant has made it very clear he does not wish to accept the plea to the misdemeanor use of methamphetamine charge, wants to have a preliminary examination. He's respectful about it, but even if he wasn't, it's still his right to have a prelim and decline any plea offer. Mr. Marvin, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, I'll tell you one thing. I am not gonna pursue count two at this time because we've got a witness who has psychiatric problems, currently dealing with those problems.
So you will not be pursuing count two, witness problems. So the prelim will be just on count one?
Yes, and as this moves forward, it could end up being on an information later date if I properly amend it.
Well, you can't just amend the circuit court information and put an assault charge back on it, but you could reauthorize it and have another prelim on that charge.
Yes.
All right, you may call your witness.
All right, I call Sergeant Paulino Hernandez.
I guess we're getting our money's worth out of you today, but let's try again. You swear or affirm any testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes,
All right, once again, would you state your name for the record, please?
Paulino Hernandez, Hernandez.
So I introduced you as Sergeant Paulino Hernandez. Would you say where you're employed?
The Central County Sheriff's Office.
And were you employed and working on the 10th of October of 2023?
Yes, sir.
And was there an incident in Mendon Township that involved defendant Jeffrey Yant?
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize Mr. Yant?
Yes, he's sitting at the defendant table. And I'm glad. Sure.
All right. On that date, what led you to that location?
We were initially dispatched for an assault between Mr. Yant and another male subject that lives there.
And did you go?
I did.
What happened when you got there?
When I got there, I had talked to some people that were unrelated to the incident. They were just at the home. Eventually, my role in the investigation was locating some narcotics.
And did you locate narcotics?
I did.
Where were they?
They were in a pole barn on the property.
What does, if anything, what does a pole barn have to do with defendant?
When I spoke with Mr. Yant, he's kind of all over the place, but he had told me that he stays in the barn. And then he said he doesn't stay in the barn, and then he said he stays in a camper, but ultimately he said he lives in this barn.
And did you search the barn?
I did.
Did you find anything during the investigation, anything of evidentiary value?
Yeah, I located a dime baggie in the barn with meth residue in it.
Where was it?
It was on the bottom floor of the barn.
And where was it when you walked in?
It was kind of in the middle of the barn on top of some, I don't know, random items.
Hidden or concealed or?
No, it was not hidden or anything. So it was out in the open.
And are you aware of any other, anything else found in the barn?
Yeah, there was some other narcotic and paraphernalia located by the assisting deputies.
Do you know where that was?
One of the items was located in the upstairs balcony area. That's where Mr. Yant was residing.
That's where what?
Mr. Yant was living or sleeping.
I'm gonna object to that. I don't know that there's been a foundation laid to the statement that he said that Mr. Yant was living in that area. I guess he didn't lay a foundation to explain why he thinks that, or who told him that, or how he found that out.
All right, fair enough. You can certainly cross-examine on that. But why did you believe that Mr. Yant was residing in that barn?
Deputy Racky or Jennings would have to testify to that. That's just what they told me.
Did you not testify that defendant told you he lived in the barn?
He did. He did at one point say he stays in the barn.
All right, so he's already testified, Your Honor, that defendant told him he stayed in the barn, that he was living in the barn.
Well, did it look, was there an apartment or something set up for residential?
Yeah, in the loft or balcony area of the barn, there was a living quarters. There was no kitchen or anything, but somewhere you would sleep.
Was there heat out there?
I don't recall if there was heat.
Was there water?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
You've said then you found that you talked about two items.
Mhm.
Would you say what they were again?
The one that I located was a baggie with meth residue that was in the bottom floor, the main floor of the barn. The other was there was a mirror located with a head, some powdery narcotics on it. And that was upstairs located by the other deputies.
Who did you field test any of these?
No,
Were they sent to the lab?
they were both sent to the Michigan State Police Lab.
And have you received a copy?
We did.
And what does the lab indicate?
Both items were positive for methamphetamine.
I have no other questions.
I'm gonna object on the grounds of that, as far as the laboratory report, I mean, do they have a copy of the report?
Oh, yeah, the report will have to be admitted as an exhibit.
Yes, I've got a copy as well as defense, and I'll make sure that I didn't bring it in with me just because of the nature of the way today went, but I've got a copy to run with.
All right, before we bind over, if we do, we'll take a look at it. All right, Mr. Gibson.
So, so when you arrived at the scene that day, who was there aside from yourself?
Deputy Racky, Deputy Jennings, there were some life care ambulance workers. And then there was two citizens there. Like,
Okay,
do you want their names or?
so, yeah, so the non, so who were the non, I guess you could say, law enforcement or emergency personnel? Who were the regular citizens there?
One of them, I believe his name is Ryan, and the other is Nicole. I don't want to say their last names if I'm wrong about that, but they were inside a Jeep in the backyard.
So you don't, do you remember their last names?
It should be with the report
Okay.
in the involved parties section.
So did you interview those subjects?
I talked to them for some time, yeah. I didn't interview them about this case though.
So were either of those individuals under suspicion for any controlled substances or methamphetamine?
No, their Jeep was searched as part of the search warrant, but nothing was located in their Jeep.
Did they indicate that they had been staying at that residence?
Not that I recall at all.
So it sounds like that your belief that Jeffrey Yant possessed methamphetamine was based upon statements that he made to you. You didn't find any methamphetamine or any controlled substances like in his pocket or on his person, correct?
That's correct, sir.
Your thought that he was under suspicion for possession of methamphetamine was based upon the statements that he made to you?
No, it's based on me and my partners locating methamphetamine in a barn that he said he stays in.
Okay. Now, when you first spoke with Mr. Yant, what did you speak about?
When I first talked to him when I got there, probably about the assault that had occurred that we were originally sent there for, but my partners were investigating that.
Now, is it correct that there was some emergency personnel that may have been assaulted by someone at the scene?
Not that I remember.
So you said that Mr. Yant told you different versions or various versions of where he was staying. So he said that you're saying at some point in time, he told you he was staying in the barn,
That's correct.
but then you said that at another spot, he told you he wasn't staying in the barn, correct?
Correct.
And you said he was kind of all over the place, is that correct?
That's correct.
Did he sound, do you believe that he could have been under the influence of methamphetamine or some other stimulant?
Without a doubt.
Okay, and so did he say that he stayed in a different part of the house at any point?
Initially, he said he stayed in a camper, but the camper was robbed or broke into.
Did he at any point indicate that he had, that he was trying to help an individual, Ernest Floyd Earl, who lived with that resident?
Correct. That person is, if I remember, like a father figure to him.
Did he indicate that he had called Adult Protective Services?
I don't remember that.
Okay. When you first arrived at the residence that day, where was Mr. Yant?
He was in the backyard,
Okay, in the back.
like between the house and the barn. And then there would be like another backyard behind the barn.
So how far away would he have been when you first arrived from the area where you found suspected methamphetamine?
What I located was methamphetamine. It was tested by the lab, and he was maybe like 6 feet from the barn door, like the entry door.
There's, everything happened in the house, we separated this so they can get different stories.
So he was outside, you said, when you first arrived. So did he at some point recognize that you guys were there to investigate, I guess, something? Did he go into the house then, or
Who?
Mr. Yant?
I don't remember him going inside once law enforcement was there.
Okay, so you didn't see him inside the house at any point that day then?
No, I don't think so.
Was there a camper on the premises?
I think there's two.
Two campers. Is there any reason did you look inside the campers?
I did.
Okay. Did it appear that there was, that anyone had been staying in the campers?
No, the windows were like broke out of them. There was definitely no heat or water in the campers. The beds were like covered in clothing and miscellaneous items.
Motorhomes and one store,
Storage camper.
and there was two.
The two motorhomes were fine. They ran and they were.
So was there two campers or motorhomes or three that were there, I guess, that you recall?
I'm only remembering two that were behind the barn.
So were you the one that had collected the suspected methamphetamine to then preserve to take to the lab?
Yeah, the item that I collected was the bag with residue in it.
Okay, and then, so did you field test that or did you just put that into evidence?
I don't believe I field tested it. Somebody else might have, but they were sent to the lab.
So what did you do then to make sure that the evidence was preserved to be able to get to the lab?
Yep, so anything that's seized as evidence by us at the sheriff's office is taken back to the department. We have an evidence processing room. Photographs are taken, lab field tests could be done if they needed to be. And then each item is put into its own plastic bag, and then it's heat sealed. And then a label is put on top of that bag to reflect what item number it is. And then it's placed into a temporary storage locker that only 2 people have keys to. One of those 2 people will open that locker and then put it into the evidence room. And then at some point, one person will take that evidence with the lab submission sheet to the MSP lab where they test it and open it there.
Okay, so when you were on the scene, what do you do on the scene? Do you put the evidence into any type of a temporary container to hold on to it, or how do you, in a sense, get it back to where you have the room and everything?
It varies. Some items can get put into a plastic bag, like one of those evidence bags I was telling you about, the heat seal. Something so small as a.
And so did you request a search warrant when you got there?
Yeah, during the investigation, I did apply for a search warrant.
Okay. And then when you were there, did you get indication that the warrant had been approved?
The warrant was approved by the magistrate.
Okay. So when you searched the barn, had the warrant been approved?
Well, no, there's some partial truth to that. You want me to elaborate on that?
Okay, yes.
So initially I asked Mr. Yant to go into the barn. He said no, but then he walked us inside. And there was some discrepancy whether or not he wanted us to dig into the areas or not. So then I asked the property owner, who was Mr. Earl, for consent for the barn, which he did grant. And then that's when I located the dime bag of meth residue, that was sitting on the bottom floor of the barn. Then we exited the barn, a search warrant was obtained, and then the rest of the barn was searched.
Okay. Now, at some point in time, was Mr. Yant's person searched, like in a sense, like his pockets and things like that?
Yeah, of course.
Did you find any contraband on him?
No, sir.
He may have, from what you're saying, he told you that he lived in the barn, but did he ever tell you that it was his methamphetamine?
No.
Did he ever tell you that he had any controlled substances, or did he talk about drugs or controlled substances?
No, he did not admit to possessing any kind of drugs.
Okay. Was there, like, when you found those controlled substances in the barn, was there anything that you saw in that barn that would have made you think that someone was staying there, like in a sense that they had left some personal belongings behind, like maybe keys or wallets or, you know, papers with maybe their names on them? Did you find anything like that inside the barn?
Why was it brought? I was drugs brought up here. You bring it.
Just a minute,
I'm sorry.
Mr. Yant, you can certainly write all your questions down.
So did you say you didn't see anything like that in the barn?
This pole barn was not like in order. It was not clean. There was stuff everywhere. There was a car in there, a ton of random property tools. Yeah, it was,
So are you saying that although you believe that he may have been staying in that barn, that it really didn't look like the type of barn that would have somebody sleeping in there or living in there?
not on the bottom floor, on the top, like I said, the loft had kind of like a living quarters, like a little apartment.
Okay, and is that where you found the methamphetamine in the loft?
That's my partners found some narcotics up there on top, which one of those items were also sent to the lab.
Okay, but you're also saying that you found methamphetamine in the lower part of the barn too?
That's where I found the bag with residue, correct?
Okay, was there anything about the bag with residue that you found in the lower part of the barn that made you think that it was somehow came from the upstairs loft? I mean, anything that you saw?
No.
So if, at what point in time did you determine that somehow that you needed to investigate for controlled substances or something along those lines? Because you weren't called there for that reason, correct?
Right, initially we were called there because there was knives being thrown at people. I guess I don't know the sequence of events of how this turned into a narcotic investigation. Like you had said, the defendant was acting like he was under the use of narcotics, but
Did you ever speak with a Dale Stafford about this incident?
I don't know who that is.
Did you have any reason to believe in your investigation that the individual that lived there, Mr. Earl, that he may have been, I guess you could say, being neglected, or maybe there was a need to potentially call adult protective services?
Yeah,
You did believe that?
yeah.
Did you call? Do you know if they were called that day, adult protective services?
I don't know if they were called that day. They were called though. That's a whole different story with Mr. Earl needing services, and eventually he got those.
Okay. Did Mr. Earl appear to kind of be coherent or making sense when he was talking?
For him, yeah, he was acting his normal. That might not be mine, yours or mine normal, but
So you had previous experiences, Mr. Earl?
yes.
And are you saying that in a sense that he's not, that he is not somebody who is known to be reliable as far as telling the truth?
I don't know if he's ever lied to me at all.
Does he seem to be, I guess you could say, possibly confused, that possibly has suffering from dementia or a similar type of illness?
He has some kind of illness. You'd have to ask his primary doctor what those are.
Does he appear to be quite elderly?
Yeah, he's fairly old.
Do you know if he's disabled?
I have no idea.
I don't think I have any further questions.
Mr. Marvin, anything further?
I don't have anything further.
Thank you, Sergeant. You can step down.
Thank you, sir.
Any other testimony?
I've got one officer who's on vacation and he's not here he could ask for further, but I am ready. I'm not asking for an adjournment.
All right. Anything from you, Mr. Gibson?
Well,
Mr. Marvin, do you have the laboratory reports yet?
Yes, I do.
This would be the time. That's the same rule that Mr. Dofsinger was citing in an earlier case that does allow for preliminary examination purposes, Mr. Yant, for laboratory reports to come into evidence for prelim purposes only.
This was already provided to defense, and they've got the item that he testified to. One item was upstairs in the sleeping area and the other one was in plain view, and both of them have come back. This lab shows as meth.
This is one, both reports dated, received December 5th. They certainly weren't in a hurry. They seized this on October 10th. They didn't send it to the lab till December 5th. It was completed and the laboratory report is dated February 16th of 24. A mirror being a white and brown residue, one hotel key card, a lottery card. Item number 1 had residue. I'm not sure what it is. A mirror, a key card, or a scratch off lottery card. And the other one is, as he described, a heat sealed bag with one plastic corner. containing white residue, had residue of methamphetamine. And exhibit, what is it? Excuse me.
So with regard to an argument on the probable cause, the defense would argue that in this situation, the police officer that testified explained, you could say, a suspicion that the defendant may have unlawfully controlled a controlled substance, but in order for the defendant to be found guilty of unlawful possession of controlled substance, he would have to have knowingly or intentionally possessed the controlled substance. And here, there was testimony that there was multiple people at this location. The defendant was, the officer said he was all over the place, and that he said various different things. At one point in time, he said he stayed in that barn. And one point in time, he said he stayed in a camper. And apparently he was saying many different things. So, but the officer did clarify that the defendant never said that he never admitted to possessing controlled substance or methamphetamine. So in a sense, the argument that the defendant made a statement against interest, a hearsay that would meet the exception to the rules of evidence. It was just that the defendant said that he lived in an area where they said that they found the methamphetamine, but as was testified to by the officer, it sounds like that the lower part of the barn would not have at all been a residence for somebody. He indicated that there may have been a sleeping area in the upper part of the barn. I don't believe the officer clarified whether Mr. Yant would have said he stayed in the upper part of the barn or the lower part of the barn. So I would ask the court to make a finding that although there may be suspicion here of the defendant, that there's not enough evidence to find probable cause, and I would ask for the case to be dismissed. Thank you.
Further, Mr. Marvin?
So we've got somebody who admitted that first he stayed in a camper, and we heard that the camper is no longer someplace anybody could stay because it had been broken into. So that was a consistent statement. That not only was stated by defendant, but then verified by law enforcement. Then he said he stayed in the barn. Then he said, you can come in and look around, but don't dig into anything. And then when he starts to, they see what he says in plain sight was meth. All of a sudden, well, I don't live in here. Then they got consent from the owner to go through. Then they got a warrant, and then they find more meth, and it's in the living area. So we've got a guy who admits that he lives there. And we also have testimony that this person during this was, the officer believes, from his opinion, that he was under the influence of something. So the standard is low. It's probable cause. We have probable cause that that person admitted, yes, I live in the barn, and yes, at least 2 places there's meth in that barn. And I should have bind it over.
It is a very low standard, Mr. Yant, but it hasn't even been met here. This started out, I think, primarily as an assault investigation. And for reasons Mr. Marvin disclosed, they're not ready or able to pursue the assault charge right now because of lack of a witness. They found one corner of a baggie in the middle of a disheveled barn with tools, cars, all kinds of stuff in the middle of the barn. So on one hand, well, it isn't clear whether you were living in there or not. It isn't clear whether there were living quarters in there, whether it had heat, a bathroom, water. It's a barn with apparently a balcony above it. When they got consent of Mr. Earl to search the barn, would lead one to believe that Mr. Earl had control and dominion over the barn. So somewhere in the middle of the barn, he said he found 2, but the only thing in the laboratory report is 1 plastic bag corner with white residue in the middle of a barn that you may or may not have lived in. But you didn't live in the barn, you lived upstairs in the, if at all, in this living quarters, ramshackle living quarters. So they go in there and the part that's under control of Mr. Earl and find this corner of a bag. Then they get a search warrant. And then they go upstairs. But we don't have the chain of evidence. Whoever seized whatever they seized. In here, it says one mirror bearing white and brown residue, one hotel style key card, and one scratch off lottery card. White residue on the mirror was analyzed and it was positive for methamphetamine. I don't know that it was preserved for fingerprints, probably not. Wasted enough state police resource analyzing this mirror residue taken out of a barn. So that isn't, we don't have the chain. Officer Hernandez didn't seize it. Don't know who seized it, where it was found, what it was, what it looked like. As Mr. Marvin indicated, one of the officers wasn't available. Officer Hernandez did find the baggie, but I don't find sufficient evidence that you are in possession or dominion or control of the baggie, which isn't even a baggie. It's a corner of a baggie with some residue in it. So I respectfully decline to bind this matter over. I find that probable cause has not been shown. And the charge will be dismissed without prejudice. If more evidence comes forward regarding the assault or other charges, could be reauthorized. For now, this case is dismissed. It's alleged that on or about May 25th, again, the village of Burr Oak, that you did possess methamphetamine as a second or subsequent offender, as a fourth habitual offender, making this a punishable by up to life. Mr. David Marvin, the county prosecutor, is here. If I understand it, he's willing to dismiss the felony and the habitual portion for a misdemeanor plea to the charge of use of methamphetamine. In Michigan, that's a misdemeanor. It's punishable by up to a year in jail and a fine of up to $1,000. Mr. Gibson, is that your understanding of the plea agreement?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Vandegrift, are you going to plead to that charge?
Yes, Your Honor.
Other than this plea agreement where the life offense charge is dismissed for a misdemeanor, anybody promise you anything?
We discussed the 13-step house in Fort Wayne, going to maybe getting a probation for a 6-month drug rehab, but no promises, Your Honor.
All right, I don't know too much about that. I'm not necessarily against it, but I don't know enough about it to be able to say yes or no, at least at this point. All right, do you understand that by pleading to that misdemeanor charge, you're going to give up the right to have a trial in this matter? There will be no trial.
Yes, sir.
If you had a trial, you'd have the right to be represented by an attorney. Mr. Gibson is here with you. You could also hire an attorney of your own choosing if you wished. She's not connected to your case. She's just here as a spectator.
I can't see. I don't have my glasses, so I
Okay,
can't see.
she's just an observer. If you had a trial, as I indicated, you could have a lawyer. You could also testify in your own behalf, but you don't have to because you have a right not to testify. And if you did not wish to testify, the judge or jury could not hold your silence against you. You'd also have a right to have any of the witnesses for or against you subpoenaed to come to court so they could be questioned under oath. And you have the right to be presumed innocent if and until the state was able to prove your guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Understand?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, you're in Burr Oak on May 25th, Burr Oak, Michigan.
Yes.
And did you have some methamphetamine in your possession?
Yes.
How much?
It was in a baggie. I didn't have scales or anything.
All right, how'd you happen to be in Burr Oak?
I was getting high and I went over to pick up my buddy over there, and then I was waiting on him.
You're from Auburn, Indiana?
Yes, sir.
What do you do down there?
I was working at Carlex Glass, and then my mom and dad lived down there too.
Are you on probation or parole anywhere?
No, I am on bond from LaGrange for a meth case, so for possession.
Is there a hold on you or you're? Well, I don't have any objection. Who is your friend? Sean Coleman? Who are you visiting in Burr Oak?
I know him by Miklo. I don't know his first name really.
Alright. I'm not opposed to you. In fact, nothing is keeping you, if I lay you out of jail today, you could go to rehab tomorrow.
Yeah.
Mr. Marvin, what's your thought?
Well, you made a point. And you said this life offense is being dismissed for this misdemeanor. That's actually accurate. And people who may not understand that, that's because there's a fourth habitual. That means he's had at least 3 prior felonies. And looking through, I looked and we've got, there are a couple of things in there besides drugs, but it's mostly drugs. And so the kind of, I don't know, absent some kind of violence or some other terrible circumstance, I just can't imagine that this would end up with a person who has, consider it like a pack of cigarettes. Are you in possession of cigarettes and nicotine? You absolutely are, but you're also using them. This person has Indiana trouble and he can go and let them pay for him. But I think that to say that somebody would go for the rest of their lives because they had some meth on them was unlikely and probably unjust. I think that this is a just result, though. It saves everybody time. The officer was on vacation and we were gonna house him in the jail and drag it out for at least another week. And we'd be right back here again. So I think this is a very good solution to this. And I'd like to see him go down to Indiana as soon as he can.
Well, you can go into the Fort Wayne program if you're on bond
Okay.
and you're an Indiana resident, you have an Indiana charge pending. We give you 24 days, credit 24 days. We'll see whether you go in there on your own or you're doing it just to get out of jail, but I would encourage you to do it. It'll impress the LaGrange County judge if you do it first. $125 before your release or 2 additional days. You'd get out today, so they bring you $125. If not, you'll be out in 2 days.
In 2 days?
Yes,
All right.
all right, you're good to go.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, good luck. You see, meth is so pervasive.